Have you ever noticed how a city feels just after midnight? There are still people around, but the atmosphere carries a subtle wrongness, as if the world has been hollowed out while you weren't looking. In the winter of 2023, Marcus found himself caught in that emptiness. He had missed the last bus through the Chicago cold and was forced to wait on Platform 7 for the final train of the night, scheduled for 12:31 a.m. When the doors opened, the scene looked entirely routine. Marcus boarded alongside a woman reading a newspaper and an old man asleep on a bench, while a station worker continued sweeping near the tracks. The human brain naturally clings to these mundane details to rationalize its surroundings. We see a newspaper or a sleeping commuter and assume we are safe, often ignoring the signs that reality has already begun to fracture. To understand the events that followed, we have to track two different timelines: the subjective perception of what Marcus experienced and the objective reality recorded by the station's security systems. Marcus believed he was sharing a carriage with other commuters. The physical evidence would later prove that he was the only person to board that train. This raises a question that defies standard physics. How does a physical human being board a vessel that no longer occupies our timeline? The anomaly began a few minutes into the journey. The train maintained its speed and blew past the first station, then the second, then the third. It continued into the dark without slowing down or making a single announcement. Searching for a conductor, Marcus pushed through the doors into the next carriage, and then the next. When he returned to his seat, the old man was awake and staring. He leaned forward and whispered that this specific train does not take living passengers. As the overhead lights flickered, the woman across the aisle finally lowered her newspaper. Her face was a mask of severe, old fire damage. When the lights pulsed again, the injuries vanished, leaving her face perfectly normal. Marcus was now moving through a closed space with its own internal logic, a localized environment that no longer followed the rules of the city outside. He ran toward the rear of the train, where he found a conductor standing motionless with a ticket punch in his hand. When the figure slowly turned, Marcus saw only empty, dark sockets where eyes should have been. As Marcus fled, the lights began shutting off one by one. The darkness moved through the cars with mechanical precision, chasing him toward the front of the train. Suddenly, the train executed a violent emergency stop. The force threw Marcus to the floor just as the doors finally slid open. Outside, the city was gone. In its place was an endless, moonlit field of snow, where hundreds of people stood perfectly still, watching the train. The train had reached its destination, a landscape completely detached from the transit network Marcus had entered in Chicago. The carriage plunged into pitch black. When the power returned a moment later, the other passengers had vanished. The train was parked at a standard station in downtown Chicago. Local police found Marcus alone in the car. He was catatonic, shaking, and unable to speak about what he had seen. Investigators reviewed the security footage from Platform 7. The video confirms that at 12:31 a.m., Marcus stepped onto the train entirely alone. There was no woman with a newspaper, no sleeping man, and no conductor. The footage highlights a different kind of trauma. Throughout the entire ordeal, Marcus was the only physical presence on that train. A search of historical archives revealed a possible connection.
In 1987, a catastrophic fire broke out in a transit tunnel beneath the city. That disaster killed everyone on board, including the conductor. The fire damage described in the autopsy reports matches the injuries Marcus saw on the woman in the carriage. When investigators checked the serial numbers of the carriage where Marcus was found, they discovered that the car had been permanently retired and sealed off following that 1987 fire. For a brief moment, a modern commuter intersected with a ghostly time loop. If you were on a train that refused to stop at your station, how long would you wait before you started looking for the exit?